Good morning, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear me. Someone?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks. All right. It's one after. We'll get this thing going. I want to give you a little status first for all you folks on. We are currently in development with customer tracking, some of that functionality, service templates and collection functionality, entity relationship management. We're close on getting entity and relationship management wrapped up outside of training programs and ATPL, but just the entities, the locations, the contacts, and the relationships. And our plan is to get all of you on this call into UAT to look at that before the end of July. And I'm hoping that'll be after this next sprint, which will be in a couple of weeks. So we'll we'll have to get you access because that's going to be on our Do It platform, hosted at Do It. And so you'll have to have Illinois Gov accounts. And we'll start working on that very soon, like this week. Okay. The next piece, we are doing some data migration also. And we're trying to get some entity location and relationship management data from the current IWDS into the UAT platform. So hopefully we'll get that also covered so that you're not looking at only data that you would create, but you're going to have that capability too. We're continuing discovery on customer intake, expanding intake to incorporate WEO, which is applications. We're doing, we've done some work on trade adjustment, but we're going to put that on hold until we get through some of these other pieces that it will utilize. Obviously, trade will utilize some of our other customer management, assessment, intake, all that kind of stuff. It's going to actually utilize those same assets. So we don't need to get too far ahead on trade yet until those other pieces get put together. We're working, as you know, I showed you some of that pre-screening process to the ETPL. We have started that also, and just trying to get through all the necessary changes and updates to the requirements so we can get those solidified and get that built out also. Sprint 9 began on the 6/14 date. It'll end today, and then we'll start our next sprint tomorrow. So that's where we're at in status. Any questions on status before we go into today's working session? I'm going to turn over to Danny McLean, and she's going to talk about reports. So any questions on status before we get to that? Let's see what we got here. Okay, I'm going to, Danny, you have a share?
Yeah, I think so. I think Sarah made me a co-host.
Okay, I'll start my share.
Yep. Let me make sure. Oh, nope. You can request host to allow. Are you
Sarah,
a host, Al? It says that only one person can share.
I stopped sharing. Hold on.
Yeah, I'm getting a sharing is not turned on notification.
Sarah, do we need to make?
Let me ping her. She might have dropped or gone to her other call, but let me ping her.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I could, because I don't think I can pass it on. Maybe I can. I don't know. Let me see what I can do.
Sorry about this.
No problem. Huh. Yeah, I don't have that in any feature.
I also don't know how to request. Yeah, I think she was going to make me a co-host and didn't. It looks like it's just you and her.
How do I do that? Can I do that?
You should be, you're a co-host, I guess I don't know, but if you go to participants, can you hover over me and make me a host?
I hovered over you. You also have the three dots.
Yeah,
I don't see in the three dots where I can allow you. Allow.
yeah, that's how you're supposed to be able to do it, so it must just be Sarah who can.
Okay, if you want to send me,
Yep,
send me your document, I'll open it up and share it. And then you can
sounds,
just tell me when to move along. Okay.
yep. My
Or is
plan-
it, or do we need to get into IWDS?
both. So I have this document that I'll send you on our Teams chat. And my plan was to go through IWDS, the existing reports.
Yep.
And just kind of talk about what's currently in use. So while Al pulls this up, I'll just kind of talk about my plan moving forward for reports. So I'm essentially doing a crosswalk exercise, which means I'm going into all of the reports. I'm getting the kind of filtering criteria that's used for each report. I'm documenting the purpose of the report. And then I'm going to go a step further and load that report and note all the data points that are essentially being shared in the report. So what that means downstream is we'll kind of look to see if we can consolidate anything, if there are reports showing multiple data points, etc. But really what I wanted to do today was just go through the reports that are in IWDS right now. We can kind of look at them. I did put in my document the purpose of each report, and I just kind of wanted some AWEA feedback on if the report is being used at all. Kind of potentially how it's being used, and that'll just help us as we plan for what reports will look like in 2.0.
All right. I am got a couple things up here. So let me just try to share. Let me just share my screen and then we can switch back and forth between a little easier.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
Danny.
so
Which report did you say you were going to start off with?
oh, go ahead.
So my plan really is just so what this document here is, and I don't necessarily know if we'll need to go through this, together today. But so what this is going to have is it has the report category. So I think there are about 5 categories of reports: summary, participant, TAA, data extracts, etc. Then it has the report name. Then what I'm gonna go do is get all of the data information that'll go in that field name column. Then there's the reporting criteria. So essentially when you run a report, each report has different kind of filtering criteria that you have to enter in order to generate it. And then the purpose of the report. So I noted that the majority of the reports had kind of a description or purpose that kind of describes when it's run or when it's updated and the potential usage of the report. So then in column F on this document, what we're going to do is I just kind of want to get a sense of, is this used today? So is this report run at all? Was it put in here, 10 years ago and nobody uses it anymore and things like that. So that's where I wanted to start today. I think there are about 70-ish reports that I got information for. And I think that's all of them that are out of IWDS. Just as a caveat, we will be just talking about the ones that are in IWDS today, not IPATs. That'll be kind of a separate conversation, not necessarily a requirements gathering session. So I think it makes sense, Al, just to start from the top. So my plan for this was just to go through the report, say if it's used, kind of the frequency of use, and just kind of mark that on this sheet. I think that's probably a good start for this.
Okay.
So it probably makes the most sense to share IWDS to the group. And then if you want to just keep the spreadsheet, or I can note on the spreadsheet what's used. I don't necessarily think.
How far can we get into these? So we're assuming this is your Did you start right here?
Yep.
And so your categories are summary, participant, federal, security, provider
Oh,
management.
I
don't know.
didn't have all of these. So you have a different,
That's cool. That's okay. Yeah, I brought mine up,
okay,
using my ID instead of
got
the
it.
test one,
Yep, yep. So
and we'll
test
probably have
didn't
to
have
add some
of
on.
these. Yep,
We'll have to add some on probably, and then I may have more inside these categories too. I don't know for sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
when you
didn't
said
have,
7 reports, I was like, well, it depends on the user permissions. I mean,
got it.
there might be fewer than 70 that a lot of us actually, use. I was just saying that I just feel bad for you to have to copy all that stuff into Excel because there's a lot. I mean, maybe not a ton more than 70, but I think there's more than 70.
Yeah, I'm seeing that now. I didn't have federal security, provider management, grant, like most of these categories I didn't have. So we'll just start with what I had, but yeah, I'll have to work with Al.
Okay,
for permissions
no
at that
problem.
point.
Program activity summary. That's where we are here.
Yep.
Okay, and here's your filter, right?
Yep. You don't necessarily have to put anything in there. If you run it, it'll just generate it's time consuming though. It might not have any data in there, but so I think it makes the most sense instead of like necessarily
Because we're not in program year 24, if I'm not mistaken, aren't we still in 23?
For
You gotta
another
change
case, yeah.
change that to 23, fourth quarter, put June for the month, June. And do 1A or something. No, yeah. You don't have to mess with the center. Don't mess with the center. Change the title to something that you have. The title, yeah, right there. Change that to 1A. Now run it.
Gotcha.
Dan,
All right, there we
do
go.
you have a question before we jump in?
Yeah, this might be a really bold statement,
And
but
now because you didn't select a local area, this is DCO, you might get everybody. So as you can see, it's 25 pages.
That's okay.
So-
We just want to know, right? We're just trying to collect, is this a useful report or is it still being used? Those kinds of things.
I
Go
did
ahead.
ran it the other day
Okay, Dan, what was
for the
your
board.
statement before we get into things?
I'm going to make a bold statement in that most of these reports either are super hard to select the right criteria to get what you're really actually looking for, and or to my knowledge, a lot of them are no longer running correctly.
Okay.
And so my bold statement is skip this and ask us what we actually want. And I'll let other people like chime in on that. But like, honestly, there are reports that are supposed to do some things, and depending on which report you run, although it's supposedly supposed to capture the same numbers, it doesn't. And
Well, so maybe we can ask, maybe we'll have a column in there that says basically, is this accurate or not? You know, and that thing. We do have to decide, like collectively, we have to say this is a part of IWDS and it does not need to be a part of IWDS 2.0 because, you know, we're kind of responsible for saying, hey, we replicate functionality. Obviously, we're not going to replicate functionality that doesn't work. So we'll also need to know that. It sounds like we assumed, at least I did, assume that they worked.
I think
we didn't
there are
realize that.
quite a
So that's
few.
good news. I mean, good to tell us.
Quite a few of them that don't, like, especially like I don't do much of the participant stuff. I'll let Paul chime in on that, and Mike Johnson, who's not part of this group, but he has a lot of input on stuff. But like with grants, if I'm running some reports for the ones that we have to do for our quarterly PPR reports, like as an example, a 1E grant, if you don't pull the right like 1E, 1C, even if you're on the fiscal grant 21, you got to pull the 23 grant, just like so much chaos that is, and I don't know if hopefully that stuff will be fixed, but I'll stop now and let others chime in with their opinions on things.
Okay, this is Mike, and I'm picking up this baton with gusto. The reporting in what we have is really rough. As Dan is saying, you've got to have just the right switches thrown. The output you get sometimes it's cumulative reporting. Sometimes there are subtotals that aren't labeled. Sometimes you don't know if a number shown here is included in a total or not.
Hey, Jeff.
You know, there's a lot of good reports in here, but there are also some that are not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll echo that.
And we also have to remember that these reports are based on Crystal. And so there was limitations to those. And so with the new platform, it should be so much more vast and more easy, user friendly. So I think the point is just to make sure that we get the right types of information for the reports that you normally run.
So now that I've come down a foot and got my feet back on the ground, just can I offer some general observations? Many of the plans are not user friendly. As Dan was saying, if you don't have the switches thrown just right, you'll get blank output or spurious output. And you have to, some reports are run on a program year, some are run on a calendar quarter. And it's not apparent always what you're actually looking at. So just overall, the user friendliness of the current reporting, it leaves a lot to be desired. And I would encourage the team to put a lot of thought into how we want reporting to work so that it's as user friendly as can be, and users understand what the report is telling them once the system spits it out.
Yeah, and we certainly hear that. We've had some conversations kind of on the back end about how we're going to format this, and it will be different than how it's currently stood up in this version of IWDS. Just from playing around with it, I certainly hear those concerns and saw them, that it's not very user friendly or intuitive and it's time consuming. So those are all things that we want to address in 2.0. I think where we kind of have to start is what you're alluding to. What data do we actually need? How do we need to filter it to get an effective kind of idea of what we have? So I think like the most tangible way to start that is to go through the existing reports, and on each one we can either say, hey, this isn't used at all, this one has a problem, this is what's missing, and that'll kind of help us get an idea of how we can maybe restructure this in the new version.
Quick thank you to everybody for taking my comments and actually saying exactly what needed to be said.
Perfect. Okay, so this first report here, we have program activity summary. I did hear that it gets used. Someone ran it last week. It looks like this provides kind of an overview of the type of activities that people who were selected are enrolled in. So counts by total registrants and active registrants. Any comments on this report from a usage standpoint, accuracy, etc.? I think we have a hand up. Roy.
Yeah, Rory has his hand up.
Yeah.
And actually, sorry, I was gonna lower it and wait till later. It was more not with this report specifically, but just like kind of one last comment along with the others is that a lot of the how do I say it? Like a lot of the reports, there is, and I am, so unfortunately, I don't do a lot as much, with grants of performance, but like participant related or like program activity registrants related. There's some overlap too, and I think that's a good reason to kind of go through these, and like we would just, yeah, you know, hopefully you guys will like pick the elements. Uh, the elements are like the type of information being, you know, captured, and then if a couple different reports are doing that. But you know, as understandably as we said, you know, back at this time, you know, when it was set up, you know, with the crystal report, the parameters, you know, back then, you know, you had to create, you know, a couple different reports and different filters. But if some of them kind of overlap in what it is that they're trying to pull, like numbers of registrants and grants, yeah, just hope you might be able to then, yeah, hopefully consolidate and then sort of kind of like customize, like picking and choosing, you know, do you want participant, you know, names, or do you want register, you know? So um that's what I was just going to say too, is that, yeah, it might, when you saw that list, Danny, it might look kind of daunting, all the reports
Yeah.
that have been built into IWDS, but I'm optimistic, you know, that like you'd probably be able to kind of consolidate a lot of those, given that like nowadays, you know, the way that queries, you know, the way you can set this up where queries can be run and a lot of fields can be maybe customized and selected, you might be able to consolidate a lot of these.
Well,
I
and
think
to
that's all I
add
was
to
going to
what,
say.
yeah, to add to what Rory was saying, I would just like to point out too, that if you've been working in reporting in IWDS for a long time, you figure out which reports to pull to get you information that it doesn't say that it's going to give you, but it does. Like, for example, I ran a report the other day because I needed email addresses for participants. But there's not like a specific function that says, ooh, you can get email addresses this way. You figure out which report has the information on it that it spits it
Yeah.
out. And the same thing with physical addresses, that kind of stuff. There's not a specific thing in there that allows you to do that, but you learn where to go to get information.
Yeah, and the nice thing about a new system would be, like I said, I'm guessing it's going to be similar to what you guys have been showing us with how you can sort of like now customize, you know, the customer or registrant and or applicant, the search, is that hopefully the user will have much more control and flexibility as far as and I hate to keep using the word customize, I'm sorry, um, but but you know, essentially to customize it. Whereas yeah, and I kind of keep forgetting that as well, that like a lot of these reports, you know, they're pre-created. I mean, they were built into the system, so it's, you know, so that's why you're getting, you know, kind of getting what you get. But I think, yeah, I'm thinking that like with the new system, we you know, we can overcome that, because it'll be like we're like running the queries instead of a system like, you know, like Crystal Reports that's already been programmed to run it, most of it, you know, with limited filtering. Now we'll be able to, I hopefully, you know, be able to filter, but also select, you know, the data points or the criteria that we want to get to pull.
Yeah, that makes sense. Michael, I see your hand up. Has your question already been?
Yeah, let me grab that baton and run with it also. If you look at the list of IWDS reports, I would bet $1,000 that a good chunk of those are on there because an existing report didn't quite give users just what they needed to answer a particular question.
Yeah.
You know, so what happens is, you know, users can't generate any of these, right? So somebody has to program this report to run. So that's why we have a list of several dozen reports, because it took over time, you know, an existing report didn't answer the question we were being asked. So we had to create another report to answer that specific question. And then after several decades, you got a whole page full of reports, and a lot of them probably, you know, that question never came up again, and that report's still hanging out there. So the option to have user customizable reporting, or, you know, exporting to Excel where you can filter the data on your own, you know, really fold, spindle, and mutilate it, that gives users great flexibility without the need to have 50 reports. Sure, maybe there needs to be a dozen standard reports that answer 80% of the questions that come up all the time. but then, give users flexibility to create their own, to answer those one-off left field questions that you come up regularly.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's definitely our objective. A much more kind of dynamic and user-friendly interface for that. So I'm thinking through here, Laura, like I said in my comment, it was on my list to kind of get a usage report. I think Paula, I was told, can provide that. So I guess thinking through how to best approach this, I don't necessarily want to click on each of these reports to see if it's used, if that's not the best use of time, if we can just kind of, get that with data. I think what I'm hearing is what our goal should maybe be is to find out what data points we need to be able to query, since we will kind of change how we're going about doing that. I'm in the process of getting all the data points that are pulled from each report, just to kind of look at similarities and differences. I don't have all of that fleshed out yet. Like I said, we were kind of starting with just kind of a usage goal. So Al, I don't know what you think in terms of best use of the time here is. If we can pull a report to get usage numbers, I think we got a good direction from folks in terms of what they'd like to see in reporting.
So there's a couple areas that, as I listen to you, so one of the things we wanted to do was to, like Danny says, get all the data that comes in each of these reports, and then we cross reference those reports together so we know, oh, okay, this one has everything that this report does without these two columns or whatever. And the idea would be okay, there's a merge capability of those reports, and then give you the ability to drop out columns or keep all columns and export. But you will always have export capability. We're not saying that, but the area where it gets a little bit tricky, okay, for us is the summary, what numbers or what data you want in tabulation, right? So, because that's not just, that wouldn't be as easily configurable, okay? So we're not using a reporting tool. We've batted that around. So far, we're not, because if we use a reporting tool, that gets into a whole nother set of issues. And just about everywhere I've been, it's been a struggle for people just to have a wide open reporting tool because they don't necessarily know, in a sense, where data is, okay? Because underneath the covers of all this, it's a very normalized system. And just to kind of give you an idea what that means from technical terms is, we position data on tables that may not make any sense at all from a reporting standpoint, but make super sense on how you store data, okay? And so it really becomes difficult in reporting tools sometimes to say, hey, here's the database, go at it, okay? Because even if we had a reporting database that we let you just go at it with a reporting tool, you would come back to us every day and say, well, how do I get to customer zip code? Or how do I get to, whatever, okay? So it's very difficult in those underneath the covers, the structure of the schema of the database in a reporting sense. So why I'm saying that is it still will be important, even though we're going to give you all kinds of flexibility and filtering, like you've seen some already on the screen, right? It'll be a similar thing when we stand this up, where you'll get a report on the, potentially on the right side, and you'll get a filtering capability on the left side, and you can massage that, manipulate that until you get the data set that you want. And then you say, okay, that's exactly how I want it. You'll be able to change in, add columns, take away columns for that particular data set that we set up for you. So if whether it be, so what we're going to have to do, but at the end of the day, we're either going to have to find a sophisticated way for you to be able to customize a summary page, like a tabulation page, or we're going to have to say, well, that starts to be an area where we are going to have some canned reports, or it's up to you to, export it and do your summary however you want. So there's an in-between, there's a trade-off, I guess is what I'm saying. So we will So like, I think the best use of time is, because this is a working discovery meeting, so it's a good use of our time to discuss reports. Okay, so I think the best use of our time is to kind of go through this and make sure, start the highest level, Danny, and make sure our categories are even. Do we want to categorize, reports on participants / customers? And then is this federal category making sense, or should that be a different slice? Like, we could have participant category, but we could have federal versus local reports within that participant category. I don't know. Or
Well, that's
Right, it
keep
depends
that
on the
separate.
user, because I don't think they can see the federal reports. I think
right.
Oh,
that's,
okay.
that's a
That's
DCO function.
Yeah, I don't have that, and I have all the reports basically. And that federal is different. It's almost for that ACR reporting type of thing. But no,
Do you have
I
any?
don't.
Okay. Do you have?
Yeah, I got everything else you got there.
Do you have provider management
Yeah,
grants?
I got everything. The only
You got
thing I
everything but
don't have
federal.
on
Okay.
it is that federal.
You have to be a
Okay.
system administrator to have
Right.
the security grouping.
Correct.
So
Okay.
Danny, if you want to get with Jim Potts, Chris Tylen, they can let you know the different roles around
Okay.
reporting and who can see what.
Okay, that's
Okay.
helpful too.
And I'm going to give them a heads up. You're going to be contacting them.
Okay, perfect.
Mhm.
And that'll help us with our, user management stuff as well. So we'll get a jump on that.
Like, maybe, Danny, we can figure out if, this summary category, this participant category, if we need to break this down, into, different subcategories, because at least then we can look at the data around those subcategories. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out ways we can pick away at this, right?
Yeah.
Because
Well, yeah.
I mean, I know you're going to do all the research you can do. You're going to look at all those reports, just like this report here is just as important as this report over here, because you're not going to know any different. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're going to say, okay, hey, by the way, this report and this report here have similar data almost all the way across. So can we merge those? I know you're going to be able to do all that, but do we have, so back to that first statement, I can't remember who it was, Robert or somebody, I can't remember who it was, said, well, maybe you should just ask us what we need.
Yeah.
That's a pretty wide open statement, but yeah, we kind of need to do that. We kind of need to go through here and say, can we group the type, just by the title alone, can we group some of these together? If somebody says, okay, what do we, somebody says, yeah, I use that report, it brings me XYZ information, but the only reason I have that is because I can't get it from this report over here or something. I don't know how to go about that, but Danny, I'll give you the floor back.
But I also want to say the target pop reports are very important because they break down the ethnic background, the characteristic of people, which is very important. Somehow, somewhere, it would be nice to kind of mix in some of the clients based off the target pop report. And I agree with you. A lot of these reports here we don't need. All of those ARRA, we don't use them no more, and they should just be taken out. I don't use all of these reports because some of them doesn't really give you any type of information. I don't know who created it. So let's say if you got 100, we probably just need 50 of them. And
Okay,
because
let's
a
go
lot of
back
this
to where you
stuff,
are.
okay.
Let's go back to where you are. We got to approach this kind of one at a time still. We don't have to go into them unless somebody says, well, I don't know. If you say you don't know, then obviously you wouldn't be using it anyway. But we can kind of go through these still, Danny, and
Yep.
on your, collect any information you can in your spreadsheet there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this one was used, right? This program activity summary.
Yes.
Yes.
And we may cut it a bunch of different ways, or we may make it better. Hopefully we can always make them better. So don't worry about that. But it seems like the data on this is relevant and it's used on a regular basis. Okay, go ahead.
So I guess this next one, entity summary, I can kind of read the purpose that's noted. So that it provides counts and percentages of agency types and business functions associated with each of the entities, or associated with each of the LWIAs. So does anyone on the call run this call or this report?
I mean, every great mode is basically showing how we set up providers. It shows us if they're faith-based, community college, business, or whatever, what is checked off when you enter in the entity. You know, what all we do with them, OJT, support service and stuff. And
Okay.
it gives you a breakdown. It doesn't tell you the name of the provider. It just gives you an overall how much you have for that you put your local area.
Correct. And OET uses that when we get legislative inquiries.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Let's take some
A-
notes.
And the same thing for you about to look at the core A. It gives you a breakdown of all the different stuff we use when you come into the job center. It show you if somebody used a computer, if somebody looked for labor market information, how many people went through an orientation, give you a breakdown, just a number. And we use number, sometimes we need it in case the board would ask, oh, how many people coming into the ones that are using the service and stuff. Sometimes is part of the negotiation for what local area based on performance as well, what the numbers is. It all depends how you want to use it.
Okay, that makes sense. Provider referral summary. The purpose says the report is not useful unless OWEA utilizes IWDS referral capability. I don't know how widely
Correct.
that's used.
That's not being used,
Okay.
but we are looking at doing some other type of referral tracking in the system. So it may be used created in a different way,
Right,
in a different
right.
place. Yeah.
Because
I think we're
we
gonna
don't use.
have. Go ahead. Rob.
Go ahead. I was just going to say we don't even use it because it really
Well,
doesn't give me anything I
yeah.
need.
Right, but I think we're gonna have better integrated referral in the future here in IWDS too. So there's going to be something like that. Now, one of the things too, when I think about some of these reports is we will have a lot of display that you don't have today that may take care of some of that. Like, for example, we are going to have like a referral dashboard capability and stuff like that when we see referrals, which may take care of some of that, but at least we're going to have a better referral capability out of IWDS 2.0, so we might need that. Okay.
All right, the summary provider registration. Let's see.
Yeah, that's a good report. It kind of give you a breakdown of who you got enrolled in at a particular provider location. Based on the training, how many people is active, depending what training program they have, how many people enrolled in that training program in a given program year. So it's handy. Every great moon, again, I will pull that out based on if requested for it. I'll let somebody else chime in on it. Because they give you they give you the entity name, the FIN number, and the location, and the training program. If it's an ITA and active register, that's basically what it gives.
Okay, all right. And then ITA training provider funding.
Same thing almost.
Is there overlap between?
It give you a breakdown per title,
Okay.
How many people is in there.
All right. So just a more specific kind of filtering of that report.
Which is handy because, like I said, it give you a breakdown per provider. How many people is you enrolled with 1A, 1D? All the titles basically except trade. Trade have another one someplace in there, and then you basically give you a ITA amount, the obligation. The numbers on the ITA and the amount is kind of fluctuate to me, if you ask me. But it's a good report if you just want a quick report to see how many people you have in a training provider in your local area. So it'd be a quick breakdown per titles, not by participant name, just by titles.
Okay, just by titles. All right.
But that report, I you can't use it for youth though, because it doesn't have one Y listed on
Right.
there.
Ah, okay. It's
So
not,
that, yeah, so if there's gonna be some form of this kind of reporting that 2.0, we would need to include the one Y.
Yep.
But yeah, and it doesn't necessarily include trade either. And I know
No,
that's
right.
sunset, but if they come up with a different version of trade, at some point, yeah. So one Y and trade are not included in this.
okay, yeah, they're not in that title selection drop down. All right. Okay, what about our quarterly trend report? So overview of, it looks like service levels over time.
Mm. I don't really use it.
Okay. All right, not widely used at least. Do you get your kind of quarter level like summaries in a different report? This is just not. Okay, we can keep going. All right, the summary training services review. An overview of customers who have. All right, so it looks like it's a summary version of the training and services review report. The purpose is to provide an overview of the customers who have some sort of potential problems with their records in IWDS. Oh,
Yeah, sometimes you run that with where is it at? The training and service report. It's almost somewhat similar. Yeah, it does say training and service review. And if you look under participant, the very first one that say training and service is almost similar, but one give name, one give you total count of what you behind in it, what it like a potential training violation.
okay.
Right, but the thing about that report is that it doesn't give you the names of the people.
That's why I said the training and service review is the same thing as that. It's one of them giving you a count. The other one, if you click that training and service report, you get the person name. This one here, the summary, just give you a breakdown. How many people is approaching? How many people is past the follow-up? It just give you a complete total. Sometimes you just want the total to know, oh, okay, I got X amount of people coming up past the follow-up. Okay, if you run the training and service report, it's going to show you all the name of the person. So that's the two different. Those two reports is the same. One that show you the participant name, one that give you a grand total of each participant training violation.
Okay, that makes
So those
sense.
could be merged together.
Yeah,
To some extent, yes, it could.
that makes sense. All right, program activity summary 1G. So that it looks like Laura noted that 1G is statewide activities funding, so like JTED, YCP.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If I could throw out a word of caution on our approach here.
Yeah.
We have like a select group of people in this conversation today. And folks in this conversation, may or may not use particular reports or be aware of what they are. But it would seem like if these reports were created at some point, it was to answer a question. So I think at some point, it might be prudent to at least eyeball what each of these look like as maybe a homework assignment. To say, okay, what's going on here? Like this quarterly trend report, maybe no one looks at that, but maybe they ought to be looking at it, to help them stay on top of what's happening. So just an example, I don't know, but it just seems to me that just because the folks here aren't aware of a report or don't use it doesn't mean it's not necessarily an important report. It just may be underutilized.
Absolutely. And I think that's something when we have kind of a directed like reporting discovery session. Like, we obviously like to use these weekly sessions to get input as we have folks on, but before we, made any decisions about eliminating, things, we would definitely want to get a broader scope of people's eyes on it. I think what our goal here is just to get a start. You got to start somewhere. So just trying to understand kind of the purposes of the reports, and certainly open to feedback if there's a better way to potentially go about this.
Yeah, thank you. It's not an easy process. You got to start somewhere. So I get it.
Yep.
And you don't put, and we're not going to not do, there's too many negatives. We're going to do research on these reports, regardless of what you say today. In other words, we're going to figure out what data is in them, how it's calculating summaries or calculating anything, regardless of how we feel, because we want to make sure that we know where the overlaps and gaps are. So just want to bring it up.
Okay. Target population summary. Also a statewide funding report.
That look like the 1J one. I know the target pops, the rest of them, the Riola, the trade, summary of providers, the state summary. Yeah, I do use those.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure everybody on this line use these target pops in some version. Cause it gives you a breakdown of everything from high school dropout, from unemployment, any kind of handicap or disability. It gives you a breakdown. It gives you like almost 3 pages based on what you put on the application.
Okay, perfect. Looks like OWIA 7 uses that as well.
I was gonna ask, do you think that you could combine the local service by customer with characteristics with the core A local services summary?
That would be great. You should be able to do that because again, it's giving you a breakdown, giving you a number aspect to it.
Yeah. And that'll be our goal, definitely, to try and combine as many of these as possible. Especially ones that you filter based on the same criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the next one, Lori, the local service by custom characteristics.
Yeah. Since it's local services, I think you could combine the summary and the characteristics into one report. And that way you can just, if it looks like the iPads reports where you can filter on a column or what have you, then they should be able to get exactly what they need.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. What about these target pop summary?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
All target pop stay.
Yes, thank you. So we could let's keep moving for the caseload summary. It just give you a breakdown of your local area case manager, what they have, how many files they got.
Can you combine the caseload summary youth that's fourth up from the bottom with the caseload summary, or does it give you different information?
What you mean?
There's the caseload summary report, and then fourth up from the bottom is caseload summary youth.
Yeah, that's one part is give you the adult side and one give you the youth side. So that one they're going to give you both the adult and dislocated work, if I'm not mistaken. And the caseload summary youth, to me, you should kind of mix them both in and just have the total right there. Yeah.
I agree.
Agreed.
Then you can filter it out if you wanted to, but we could combine it. Yeah.
Yep. I think that's a good idea. All right. These target pop ones also stay by funding stream there.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Those are ones that I don't have. So that's interesting. Those are extra ones.
I think it's, and I'm sorry, and I think Laura probably already confirmed this. So like federal security, that you might have to be like DCO, like state level to get this, but all the other ones, I think if you get, I don't know why I'm saying this, Laura probably could, or Mark or somebody could answer it, but I think it's, if local system administrator, I think is the one. If they check that in your IWDS user profile, it should give you permissions for these
security,
other.
right? Yeah,
Chris
can give you a breakdown of which role has which accesses which types of reports.
Okay.
And then for
Yeah.
target pops, like funding streams, some of those could even be,
Combined.
I guess, in a way, like maybe consolidated as well, because if you take the filtering options on each of those landing pages, you know, when you click on the, you know, any of those in the menu, yeah, I don't know, maybe you could even like you could combine for the target populations, for the different versions of target populations, you know, we estate, like you could maybe put, you know what I'm saying, like maybe combine them hopefully, and then
Yeah.
it could be like target populations as a category, and
Yeah.
then a drop down.
Filter that. Yeah. And you could always select all if you didn't want to, you know.
Yeah, anything with ARA in front of it, it was the old stimulus. And 1YS is also use stimulus money, so we don't, those are gone.
Okay.
And the TANF Yes program is over with as well. So those can be gone.
Okay, perfect. I don't have those on my chart, but I am making a note of that.
Yeah, I can give you all this list
Yeah.
too.
Okay. All right. So moving into, I think we got, I guess, program activity summary, TAA. Is there a reason that's not under the TAA category? I noticed sometimes these are like filtered in with the rest, and then there's a specific TAA category at the bottom. Okay.
Yeah,
Does
that would be a question for Sheila Sloan and
Okay.
Susan Box. It
Okay.
may be who has the right to see what. I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah, I've had some sessions with them on trade stuff, so I
Mhm.
can kind of pivot trade report questions to them. All right, and then the target population summary down there, I think that stays as well, right? That's used. All right, so moving into participant, the training and service, and I guess we should start, is participant an accurate category for this? Like, are these all customer-based reports?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, and there's value in having a category titled participant?
Well,
Like,
we can always change it. Now, I always like new stuff just so people can see that we got something new going on. If you want to change the name, I would say yes. Because that participant been there since the dawn of J9 CETA. So, so if we want to change some of the titles of some of these things, I would say it would be good. It would give a fresh start, a new look, and get
Yeah,
something.
you've got a couple Exeter reports in there, so you can always break this down further. You
yeah.
can have active participant, Exeters.
Stuff like that, okay.
Yeah.
And stuff, okay.
And didn't we have a very long and extensive conversation about the distinctions between customers, registrants, and participants already?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, you'd probably want kind of like either those three categories or a general term for like, you know, if all three of those are encompassed within participant, you know, here.
And and as you say that, it's the wording when you say participant, that normally that means they started, but inquiring, sometimes you have issues getting that report because they really not active. They're just somebody that came through the system.
Right, yeah, they
Exactly.
didn't get a certified application and things like
Right.
that.
So
Yeah.
we could, sometimes we like to see the number, how many people came in,
Yeah.
but when you try to run a certain report with just inquiries, it really doesn't come out correctly.
Okay, okay. I think that's something we can think about when we kind of decide our categories.
Yeah.
And the UI profiling, that's something we used to do with IDES.
Still.
I don't even know we even use that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, we still get that.
You still get it?
Should
Okay.
be, yeah. Because they're automatically DW eligible.
Yep.
So those could
Okay.
go, that kind of thing can go in like customer level, because that's something you can use to
That would
do
be good
outreach
information.
to.
Right, correct.
Versus some of these, you could put them in registrant, you could put them in participant, you could put them in exiters, make those categories. Incurrent or reportable individual is what the system calls it, but reportable individual is what WIOA calls that person in that status. And so, we may be breaking it down that way.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Christy from LWIA 7. I just want to say something before you guys start going through these reports, the
Yeah.
participant ones. I know we use a different system in our LWIA, which is a little different, but we have a report guide that might give you guys a starting point, although it's not the direct link of the same IWDS reports, but it would give you an idea of some of the probably an idea in a summary form of what reports are used for what information.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I
Yeah,
could
that would
send
be
it.
great.
I mean,
Yeah.
I could send it to the whole group because I'm just guessing that like it's saying like how many people started work, like obtained employment.
Yeah.
We want to know certain information from our delegate agencies on a monthly basis. So this is what we ask them to do.
That would
So
be
we have
awesome.
it's like a summary report that says the name of the report, what it gets, and what it's used for. So I could send that to everyone just as I'm just guessing we're using the same, information. And Career Connect has totally different reporting structure, but it's still pulling the same data. So I could just send it in an email.
Okay, thank you. That would be helpful.
Sure.
All right, why don't we start at training and service review? I made some notes of the ones that we touched on, kind of downstream, but looks like this is designed to assist case management staff in identifying customers who have a problem that must be dealt with. So like exceeding the limit for lack of training and service, or alert them to a non-mandatory limit that the customer is approaching. Anyone use this one or familiar with it?
Oh, I use it,
Okay.
but like I said, that is needed. That's what I was saying. That one and
Okay.
and where was it? On the next side there, that summary of training service review. Those two is similar. Is only that the one you're looking at right now give the name of the person.
Okay, that's what you were alluding to earlier. Okay.
Right.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Yeah, what is that one?
What about ITA funded training? Is this the same as ITA training provider funding? Just without the provider information?
The
That
ITA
one-
funded training is that will
Just-
run specifically to participants enrolled in the LWIA user that is logged into IWDS. So if I run that, it's only going to show me, it narrows down, it's people that we've enrolled in training, and you can filter it by, it'll filter them out by the training provider, like who you have enrolled at which provider. The one on the summary menu, and I apologize, I was off on a call when you guys might have been going through this one, that training provider funding, and then I think there's one that's like a summary provider registration. Those actually, like a lot of these reports, like, they might have been in there, and just if I didn't have a need for it, I like, as long as I've used IWDS, it's like, oh wow, like some of them I just recently discovered. Those sometimes we do like those if they could be enhanced, as we're talking about with the new system. Those would be great, because to show a little bit more information. But when we get people asking about, a school, like there's a lot, do a lot of people do a lot of LWIAs, utilize this provider, how many people have exited? So that would be the difference then with that, the one that has ITA in the wording in the summary column. The one under participant is ITA funded training for the LWIA user that's running it.
Right.
But they're both, I was just sorry, that was a long way of saying that we use both of those.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good to know. Okay.
Right. And it may be that you pull out the provider information out of the summaries if, the OET staff that looks at these reports agrees that it's not limited to the summary, that it can actually go under the provider reporting category instead of here. So
Ah, that makes
Here,
sense.
yeah, I mean, this is just a good time to look at where they really truly belong too.
Right, is this in the appropriate category? Yeah. All right, participant by provider. This one didn't load for me, so I don't know if anyone uses it. I don't know if it'll load for you, Al. Okay, it does. So that was a me problem.
We use that, and
Okay.
sorry to sound like a broken record here again, but
No.
but also piggybacking on what Laura just said too, is that in the provider, and not that, I mean, it's not a bad thing to have them in both categories, under the provider menu that you're going to see when you go back to the main reporting menu. But another potential for crossover, as they say, where you might be able to combine those two, since there's, what is the one I'm thinking? It's like detailed provider registration or something. So, I mean, that does have a specific purpose if you're looking more provider criteria, like, who's gone to this provider versus what providers in general are we sending people to. But I'm just saying from like from an overlap and a potential crossover where you could maybe even combine those programs, and you don't have to select all of the fields that each does, but that's just another kind of going on what was said already, that could be another potential opportunity I just noticed for possible crossover or combination.
Okay. Did this pull up, Al, when you clicked OK?
It takes me to a Crystal Reports viewer, and then it's wanting criteria here. I'm not sure, but there's not much in the drop downs, so I don't know if I have to get a broader range probably in order to get, because I don't have anything. Well, I mean, I have a few things, but they don't look very valid.
Right.
So this is jumping over the Crystal Report viewer actually brought up information.
Huh.
So anyway, most recent, and this is for, what was this for? Days since the last case note. I don't know if it went to the right spot or not. But
Interesting. What's the title of this though? Participant by provider. So why did it pull up on days since last case?
well, here's your not sure.
Like maybe it's just a poorly titled report, but that doesn't.
Yeah, this is
No,
not
that's a
this
separate
doesn't.
report. That's a
Yeah,
different,
looks like it
completely
went-
different report.
Right.
It went to a different report. Yeah,
Okay.
for some reason. After I did the filtering here, and then said okay, it went to this report, which is weird, but there's a
Interesting.
bad link there. Okay,
Yeah.
this is probably on here. Let me think here. It's a case.
There's a caseload summary.
It's a case management report. It's not really a summary. There it is, right here. Looks like this one. Potentially. Well, not sure.
Is there a customers the days since last case note?
This is it. This is it right here. Yeah. That's what that one is.
Okay, so just a bad link on that one.
Yeah. So I can't run it either.
Okay. All right.
But that would make sense that we'd want this. I mean, this sounds good, actually. Participants by provider. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, you'd think.
I don't know. I don't know what the difference between that and history. What's your history comments say?
I couldn't, history is just let's see, report designed to provide a concise overview of the training and services that have been provided to the subset of customers who have been selected. So it doesn't have, I don't know if provider is included in that, but it looks like it's largely just services and activities. Yes. Okay, so we can highlight participant by provider. I think there's use in that. So Rory, I see you posted that, but when you fill in that information and click OK, do you get directed to the case note report? Because Al could.
No, sorry. I thought that maybe you guys were having trouble pulling
Ah.
that in the menu. So I was just posting a screenshot if you wanted to
Gotcha.
see what the criteria is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's
Yeah,
okay.
it's-
Thank you.
After I filled this in and hit OK, it went to this for whatever reason. Or maybe that
I
Maybe
just ran
because
mine and it works fine.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can put
so here's what I did case management.
I put a little excerpt, a little snippet of what it would look like if you're wondering what it displays.
Okay.
I just ran a quick
Case
one from
management.
it's probably only has one name because I just did like from June 1st. Because
Okay, no, that's fine. That's perfect.
yeah, as Robert wisely advised, reminded
it went to
earlier
it
on,
went-
if you don't put a date range in there that's close, we'll get like 700 pages.
Yeah, takes forever.
So I just picked like starting
You're quite
registered
welcome.
all right. Yeah, mine went there this time. I don't know what to do.
That's weird.
Why did it jump to? Yeah. Okay.
All right,
All right.
participant history we use.
Status.
Participant by customer status.
Now we will have. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna just say with these participant report, I wish we could kind of fine tune it a little bit better because that could participant history give a lot, and sometimes they give information that really we don't need. I mean, it's just got too much information as far on that report. It's handy, yes. It's just something about the report has I got some issues with it. But go ahead, Al. I would just voice it.
I was just thinking, no, Robert, I was just thinking, one of the things, for example, when you see your customer list, you're going to be able to see statuses. You're going to be able to filter by statuses and all those kinds of things. So it might not be like getting data holistically from this system might be a little difficult, but in the future, you might not use this report as much because you're going to be able to filter those customers and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know what this. I'd have to look at this report to say that.
Yeah, because some of these
any of these reports that aren't summary, if they're over here, then they're probably a lot of stuff you're going to be able to do in the system.
right.
You might have had to go work off of this and go backwards, whereas in the future you might not have to do that.
And then some of these report got the in school, out of school report, but then on the history, it may don't have that. So it's like it's handy, but somehow now these particular participant report, if we could break it down where all four of them you could select it or merge it up to some degree, would be great. The same thing with the participant by career planners. It's just going to show you what each
Under
career
column.
planner, what they have, who they working with under their caseload. And then on on the participant history, it does show the participant, I mean, not the participant, the career advisor, if I'm not mistaken on there. So it has some of the same features. It's just, I don't know. I'm gonna leave
Right.
it to you guys.
Yeah.
No,
all
I
those
get that,
three
Robert,
can
yeah.
be combined. I think
Go ahead,
all
Paul.
those three can be combined.
These three.
Participant.
That would be great.
Yeah, participant history
okay.
report, customer status report, and participants by career planner, because all this stuff in the career planner one and the customer status one, you can get all of that information in the participant history one, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
again, this is and I think it kind of goes along with what Mike was saying earlier too, that over time reports were probably added because in the LWIAs, we didn't have access to obviously the Crystal report. So without the ability for local areas to kind of customize the query and filters, they would have to just build a new report because maybe at the time, like, well, and maybe a lot, back in, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, we weren't doing a lot of exporting into Excel and filtering it out. So looking back, I mean, it's probably why the different ones were created to help it. because you might just want to know like, oh, hey, who's an applicant now who hasn't been certified as an application, or by the career planner, you want to know like, well, what's their caseload? So there's a, it makes sense that these are broken down and kind of by what you would need that information for. But yeah, there's a lot of fields that overlap. So yeah, that's a good one that you could really consolidate and combine those. And then again, just give the IWDS 2.0 user the option to filter out those columns if you don't need the mailing address or the phone number. You can that would be in, I believe that's in participant by customer status. You could just choose not to display those or something. But yeah, good points.
And also, if we can, I think all of you guys might agree where sometimes we need to send out like email blasts to these customers. And sometimes I get asked, can we use a report and create mail merge, I want to say, to create a mail merge to send out stuff to client when certain job fairs come available. The way we got to do it is very time consuming, but something where we could do a mail merge to participant where we could get information out a little bit quicker. What's your thought, Rory?
Well, I'm assuming you could actually, so we'll have the capability you can export to Excel. So any Excel sheet can merge with any of your Word documents. So that might be a really nice way to do that.
Yeah, but when we merge them into Excel, it shoot up all over the place. That's a problem. If you got either the Excel extended or Excel where it come the same way as one Excel look like if it's a PDF. The other one, everything is moved around. So if you say title under this thing, under title, it might show you the social security. If you got address, it might show you the participant name. So then
actually, okay, just not working
Crystal. That's
Crystal
unfortunately
issue.
that's just because it's dated the system. Yeah, when because it's the way Crystal probably reports designed, it exports it into Excel. But nowadays, with a lot of these things, even from like IABS or the things, the samples, the mock-ups that you guys have shown us, it sounds like it'll kind of take care of that. It's much nicer. Like everything will be in matching columns. But yeah, but that has been, I'm sure for everybody,
a nightmare.
That's a challenge to when you select instead of the format you want in the reporting menu to kick it out, like either PDF or Excel. When you do Excel or Excel extended, there's merge cells. There's workarounds. You have to kind of clean it up and then combine columns. But that sounds fundamentally like something that'll be fixed in the new system.
That should be fixed.
Capabilities should be there now.
Yeah, because when I do reports, sometimes I got to run it as a PDF first so I can see how the format look. Then I go into the Excel extended and look at it and say, okay, now let me cut and paste, move this over here, filter out this. Then sometimes if the person got multiple programs going on, at the bottom of the page, you see all of this stuff. So sometimes you got to kind of select all and try to fix it. It's a
it shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be a problem in our system. Okay. Laura, you have your hand up.
I was just going to say and I put it in the chat, but I just want to make sure that Danny saw it. The one that starts with CSSI exception report, that's long dead. That can go.
Okay.
And everywhere that you see it says DETS, DETS, that's been changed to IBS.
Okay.
So you need to make sure you change that. As far as the rest of these, I'll let the people that actually use them on a daily basis speak to them. But off the top of what I'm looking at, they look legitimate. So.
Okay.
Well, and this is a perfect example where we're at right now, the participant by customer status and participant by career planner. If I want to know email addresses, I run participant by career planner. If I want to know physical addresses, I run participant by customer status because that's the only place you can get it.
Okay.
But the filtering is the same. The filtering is the same. I will just put in the career planner that I want and registrant status. And then that will give me what I need.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah, we can fix that.
Dan, I see your hand up too.
I don't even know if I should even mention this, but
Oh geez.
I think I'm one of the couple people around the state that actually has some reports that I've created on my own from back in the day when all of the IWDS database was actually documented really well. And then I've hit up Mark at times to get assistance with, as tables have changed and fields have changed, et cetera. But like, this is an example of, we have our own report for participant addresses that I run, and it has everything in a nice format with, and it's like, I feel sorry for you guys, although I'm just lucky that it's existed for a long time, but I feel sorry for you guys that have to take multiple reports, export them, then combine them, remove the duplications, et cetera, et cetera. But, and what Al was talking about earlier about, yeah, it is, you really do have to be careful when you're doing your own crystal report against that database to make sure joins are right, et cetera. But if there is that possibility to receive that documentation after the new system is in place so that we can locally tweak reports, because sometimes there's stuff, you just don't even need, and I just want this or whatever. Hopefully through this discussion, we get to a point where we have everything that everybody wants for, an extended period of time, and so that we don't have to create our own locally. But I'm done. Sorry.
You're good. Michael, you have your hand up.
Again, picking up Dan's baton here. Picking Laura, like we had Mark run us special queries to answer questions about waiver activity. So there were some reports that Mark had been giving us that are not even on this list. So I just mention it now that we don't want to forget about those because we'll still need to get that information.
Jeff Brown and the reporting unit are on top of that.
Great to hear.
That does kind of bring me to an outstanding question that Al and I had. We kind of have reports categorized as like federal, and then there's like a statistical one, and then we have a category that's customized, on demand, and ad hoc. Would this group know kind of the difference between what those like report categories are? Like maybe those ones you reached out to Mark for were your ad hoc reports. Any thoughts on what those kind of categories mean?
Other than the generic common use of the title, it would be helpful, I guess, to see what's in each of those categories.
Yeah, I don't have a list of things that are in each of those categories. That's why I was trying to understand like what constitutes a customized report, what constitutes an ad hoc report, etc.
I think they're synonymous, Danny. I
Okay.
think just ad hoc is probably the more. Well, Mark Saladino could answer this, of course, better than I could, or any of you could probably answer better than I could. I'm guessing that's maybe the term that the programmers use, like the technical term, like ad hoc or like as needed. But an ad hoc report is a customized report.
Right.
It was when Mark or one of the other programmers would go into Crystal reports, and then you could send them the hey, here's the fields that we want. Can you pull this from this screen, pull this from the applicant screen, pull this from the barrier screen, and then awesomely put it into like columns in an Excel when it was read. So that was, yeah, those ad hoc reports were awesome. But again, it sounds like with the capabilities, modern capabilities now of reporting, like we'll be able to kind of just filter in the reporting menu and filter and pick columns we want and expand, and we won't need to actually get into like Crystal, because I know those powers could be used for good or evil. It could be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, and I don't know what I'm doing, so I know.
Well, I think that the Crystal Report went away. The last time I used to use it was I had Crystal Report 9. I know they way past that. And when I wanted to update it, that's when they say, we're only going to have DCO do the Crystal reporting, which was Mark. So I used to send in my request to Mark to do specialized report. Yes, back in the day, because this system here is an Oracle base, and that's how Crystal report works. So you kind of run, if you know your language in there, you could create your own report, like Dan was saying. You could create it and make it ideal, and then guess what? Once you have it, You can always run it to update, and basically you have your own set of reports that you could use, and you don't even have to use IWDS because you running it from IWDS, but we had the capability of just doing what we have.
Mhm. Yeah, our goal is definitely to minimize that need for, reaching out and asking for those, just have more autonomy in the system itself, but that's helpful to know. All right, looking at our time, I think maybe it makes sense if we do kind of a high level scan of the participant reports, other than the ones that we've touched on not being used. Is there anything else that just kind of stands out as there's a problem with this, we don't leverage this, anything like that?
I'd just like to say, in general, making sure that whatever report is there does have an accurate description of what it pulls and the time frame. Some of the ones in IWDS say when they pull them, they're batched this way or that way, or it's real time, whatever, and some of them don't.
Okay.
And that can be really helpful if it was consistently applied to all of them.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Then
She's right. With those reports, some run Wednesday, some run Friday night, and sometimes there's problem. But if we didn't run the report, we wouldn't even have know there's a problem until we ran the report. And sometime the following week, information might get updated. Some of these reports, I wish it was real time to show the accuracy of what we're doing, but sometimes we just have to wait either 3 days or 5 days before we get a true count of our records and stuff.
okay. All
So
right.
hopefully the
I don't,
hopefully
I don't,
two,
yeah, I don't
yeah, I was
anticipate
just
that.
saying, I'm hoping the 2.0 will be a little bit more user friendly, if giving us real time information so that we have
Yep.
to wait.
The only thing we have been considering is, we may what we may do is, we don't know for sure yet, because one of the things we don't want to do is make you wait for a submission and everything is kind of locked up, right? So we may have to asynchronously tell you it's okay, we got it done, but we still feel it's going to be real time. Okay, so we're not going to stage these in jobs for sure. And so, but the only thing we got to watch is, so we may give you back page one, and then say, okay, do you really want, do you want the rest of this report? Okay, it may be a submission, and we're talking minutes, not, just because we might want to background it if it's a really big report. Okay, but we don't know that yet. I'm just saying we may have to say it and then come back to you in a notification, like at the top of your screen that says, hey, it's ready now. But I don't anticipate anything being batched like you're experiencing today.
Well, like a good example of a problem that's caused by that is that we had someone new who was onboarding and we were transferring cases over. And like the participant by career planner report, like if we wanted to double check and make sure we caught everybody, that doesn't update until the weekend. So I told the person that I was doing it for, okay, if you go into each person's individual file, you can see that you are now the career planner of record. But if you pull this report, it's not going to show up. It's going to look like it's the other guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So just
that should
simple
be no,
stuff like that.
yeah, that should be no problem. It should be instant. I'm just saying, if we have to do some kind of a summary history, or, through the whole year or something, we may have to turn it around in minutes or seconds or minutes, just so you don't lock your screen up, so to speak, in the meantime. But I don't foresee anything. We hope that nothing's going to be like that, but I don't even foresee anything like overnight or anything like that. Not today.
Michael, you got your hand up too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have them. I believe Illinois WorkNet has like training provider effectiveness rates, and I assume that comes out of IWDS, but maybe not. But I'm wondering like trying to think of like the strategic application of this data. Do we have any reports on this list on our screen here that give us insight into provider effectiveness or program effectiveness? Like number enrolled, number and percent completed, number of percent that entered employment after coming out of that program.
We don't. Go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm done. You get the idea.
Well, right now, we don't collect some information from the providers. We have the information about those WIOA participants because we get that information. We're able to run the wage match against the UI at IDES and able to get that information back. So we can produce those numbers, but it's only reflective of the WIOA participants.
Mhm.
We still have to get back to, we no longer have the waiver, so we have to collect the information for all the students that are within a program in which there's at least one WIOA student. And so we're trying to, we're working on a separate arm of how we're going to do that. So when we have that, we will have more of that information. And then when you go to the ETPL page that we're going to be creating, or the one that's out there now, it does show you some type of outcome information by provider, completers and things along those lines. And once we get that all student data, it'll just supplement that, and it'll show everyone instead of just the WIOA participants.
Rory, your hand up too. I don't know if it's.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, actually, Laura answered part of that, was just saying like that part of that is a whole separate thing of how we're gonna be required to start collecting outcome data from the providers. And then currently in IWDS, if you go into the training programs and you pull up a training program, there is a button that says like view performance, I think it's called. But at least as far as WIOA participants, one of the things, and I'm sure this has probably been asked already, but just if there's a way, remember I was mentioning those the two columns under the summary, there's like an ITA funded or something. And then in participants, there's reports that we can run. One of them will show you the participants LW, like at other LWIAs, like at least the numbers, not their names, but it'll tell you how many people went to, Acme Welding School or something, and how many that at least based on the exit, the way, at least based on the employment screens and the exit wages that the career planners and those OWIAs have exited their participants. It'll say who exited with jobs, training related. So, and then there's similar ones like successful completion, YN, entered unsubsidized employment if it's the exit reason. It's another example of where there's a few different reports. I think it's in the participant or the provider management, like training provider summary, and then the participant by provider. Again, it'd be a perfect way to combine like 2 or 3 different reports to get what you need. And one of the ad hoc reports that Mark Saladino put together for us about 4 or 5 years ago was just a kind of a just that one tweak of like, instead of like enrollment date, some let you do it by activity date, but like we just want to know like start date and end date of training programs. We were trying to look at like average time spent in certain community college programs, for example. So the project we were doing, and some of the reports were provider, like participants, like by where they're by the training provider and training program. Some of them it gives you the program name, some of them it doesn't. But then this one does give so that it's just one of those where again, another opportunity where you could, if you could combine those, and going back to what Mike said, then yeah, it'd be, if you can combine those fields and have the ability to select the training start date, not necessarily the enrollment of like for services before training, but like, because if you do it like, but if a report only gives you the filter, like to search a filter of like enroll date or application date, well, enrollment could be like the day that they first were enrolled in a service, so it's not necessarily the training start date. So when you can narrow that down, as far as like training provider performance, measuring the outcomes. I think, sorry, basically what I'm saying is like the potential's there. It is in some reports, kind of as to Mike's question. in a few different reports, you can get what you need that would do a fairly decent job of that. Like Laura said, until we have providers providing outcome data on all their students, not just WIOA funded students, but at the very least for WIOA funded students. And then when we can pull some of those reports, if we could get it to show like statewide, or even if we could select other OWIAs, so we know if other OWIAs are sending participants. That's the other limitation too with in the participant reporting. If you do like detailed provider registration or participant history or participant by provider, it's only showing and often we're tracking our own people because how we're doing with our own outcomes. Don't get me wrong, but there are times too where it would be kind of good, interesting to know what other OWIAs, the numbers of people that they've enrolled at microtrain or this college or that or something.
Yeah, that's good feedback. All right.
I think we're close. We're 11:31, right?
Yeah, I think we're at time. Yeah.
Well, y'all
Okay.
complaining about time now? We having a good time. Let's keep it rolling.
I know.
I got a half an hour free today, and it's right now. One
My
half
lunch
hour.
break is calling.
I had an 11:30 call, right? And they called me while I was on the phone with you guys. They said,
All
"Can you
right.
make it to 2?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
All right, thanks a lot. This was actually, it's really useful to talk about this because we got to get our arms around this and we got to start somewhere. So thanks for all the input. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And I think next week or the week after, we'll definitely have some of these fields kind of lined out. So we'll be able to have kind of a more specific, detail-oriented conversation about it. But like Al said, I think that's a really good start.
Very much.
Yes.
And also for the providers and stuff, they have a better reporting for when program need to be updated. And if we don't catch it within that 30 days, we have no way of knowing that a training program need to be recertified. And sometimes people clients get enrolled into a program and they haven't even been recertified, because I had one of those problems. I'm like, oh boy. So I had to work double quickly to get it approved with the board and stuff. So something with that reporting as well, but we could talk more another day.
Thanks.
All right. That sounds great. Thanks,
We
everyone.
will, yeah, and we will not be meeting next week due to the holiday, so I will cancel the meeting right now.
Yeah, I would think so, because I think 4th of July is a Thursday, right?
Y'all want to spend your holiday with us?
Yeah, no, I heard that y'all were gonna pay all of us double overtime to
Yeah.
come in.